All right, I am Tom Sheffield, Senior Director at Target. I lead our Global Identity and Access Management team. I'm pretty excited to be here today. It's my first in-person conference in 2 years, as I'm sure most of the case here right now. I'm also pretty excited that I get to be around by some of the brightest people in the industry, people that I look up to. I see some people in the room right now. And I'm also very excited because I'm proud of the work that we did at Target and how we rolled this out. If you just attended Libby's session right before this one, you'll hear some common themes, which I was happy to hear along the way. So I'm not sure if Bob's in the room, so I'm going to do my own informal poll. By show of hands, how many people in the audience have begun a FIDO rollout or pilot effort so far? All right, some have. For those of you who have, hopefully you can learn something from us. For those of you who haven't, maybe I can inspire you, maybe to go start sooner or go faster. That's the goal today. I want to give you something you can take back to the office next week and start your journey. So we've been on our journey now for a few years, and we've made some decisions and I have some observations that I'll share today that hopefully will help you all. Over the course of the next 20 minutes or so, if my clicker works, I'll share some of the factors that influence our decision to begin our journey, and you can help you see if they apply to you as well. I'll share some of our lessons learned along the way, and I'll also talk about some of the metrics that we use to track our program and monitor our success and our progress so far. Now, before I go into the FIDO journey specifically, I'll go back in time a little bit to about 6 years ago when I joined Target. And we laid out an identity vision at the time that was really built on 3 core tenets. We wanted to simplify technology. We wanted to try and reduce as much tech debt as we can. We wanted to take advantage of modern engineering capabilities, think cloud and DevOps. We also wanted to leverage open standards because I want to make sure I had flexibility and interoperability, not just within my identity ecosystem, but also with my partner teams across the Target Tech engineering community. We also want to enhance security. We recognized the inherent weaknesses of passwords and knew that we needed to have a plan to get rid of them over time, or at least reduce our dependency on them. And so we began looking for technology that would help us do that. And then finally, I wanted to improve user experience. I wanted to create productivity for my customers. My customers are the enterprise users. I wanted to help them do their jobs in a better way, but also securely and compliantly. I didn't want them to have to make any trade-offs on their own, because that's where problems usually happen. So if you know anything about FIDO, you know FIDO fits those tenets really, really well. See, FIDO itself is standards-based, cryptographically backed, phishing-resistant. It's a strong authentication solution. FIDO2 plus WebAuthn is the password killer. There's no better time than right now for all of us to begin taking advantage of that. We actually started our FIDO journey in around 2019 when we launched our own custom FIDO server. And at that time, we began using FIDO security keys and then users on Android mobile devices accessing our web applications for step-up authentication. And then shortly after that, we said, hey, let's take the next step and begin looking at FIDO for a primary authentication solution backed by biometrics. And so that's really where it all began for us. Within Target, we call our program Fingerprint ID. We don't call it FIDO. We don't call it passwordless. We call our program Fingerprint ID. That was very intentional, and that's how we promote it within our organization. And I'll quickly highlight why I focus on enterprise first. It was a very deliberate and intentional decision that we made. You see, right away it aligns to our identity vision, right, about improving user experience, enhancing security, leveraging open standards. So it really, really fit well. But we also had full control over the device. So I knew that my users had a capable device, and also which users specifically did. So I could begin targeting them with specific communications to make sure that I could roll out a solution that would actually work for them. And then finally, as much as I hate to say it, our enterprise users are great guinea pigs, right? There's a lot of chance to experiment with our enterprise and not worry about losing a guest or a sale. In a retail business, you can imagine how important that is. So it's a very intentional decision for us to focus on our enterprise first. Like I said, we've been on this part of the journey since around 2020, and I'll share some of the factors that influence our decision and hopefully allow you to take them back and figure out what might apply to you. We looked at the environment in 2 different ways. First, we looked at it externally. You think about the external ecosystem, the FIDO2 standard and specification had reached maturity, all right? It is a very mature standard now, and it's really evidenced by the broad industry support. Today, all major browsers, operating systems, and hardware vendors all support the FIDO standard and specification. That work's already done for you. You also have to consider your internal ecosystem, and for us, there are a few things that really mattered that really allowed us to go fast overall. The first one's our culture. You see, Target's culture is built on innovation, specifically the engineering organization. It's an engineering-first culture, so we like to build things. We like to experiment and try different technologies. So it really laid itself out very well for us. I mentioned it before, but we also knew we had compatible hardware. Again, because the FIDO specification was so new, I didn't want to roll this out and only have a quarter or a small percentage of my users be able to use it, or half of a team because they have capable devices. So we had actually been in partnership with our desktop engineering team for about 4 years or so to make sure that all the replacement and new devices coming in all had fingerprint readers. So very intentional, long-term planning, but allowed us to go really, really fast when we got there. Today, we estimate that about 90% of our devices, our workstations, are all capable of using fingerprint ID. We also looked at our enterprise authentication pattern. We'd been building this over a period of time, and we have a very robust framework that we've put together. And there's 3 core enablers within that really work out well for us. The first is that all my users at Target have a single identity. I have one identity to register. Once they're registered for fingerprint ID, any digital experience using that identity on the applications that support it is automatically available to them. We have a very robust logon service capability. It's basically an application that sits in front of all of our other applications. So we integrated FIDO into that and then use session management to basically carry that across all those other applications. And then behind that, there's hundreds of applications and thousands of APIs that are all collectively integrated into that pattern. So what this means overall is that we immediately created a lot of value for our users. It was something that I could say, hey, you're going to get this benefit across hundreds of applications across your digital day. And so it was something that we could sell very easily and show the value that we're getting. We didn't really angle it as a security play per se. It was really a value play for our customers as we started. So we've been at this for a little while. We're not where we want to be, but we've made a lot of progress. Within the first 8 months, we had 50% of our targeted users register for and begin using our fingerprint ID solution. I call a targeted user a user with a capable device, people we were specifically targeting to use the solution. And in about 8 months, we saw over half of our audience do that. The other thing that we saw, however, was sort of the broader adoption. So within the first year, we launched on World Password Day 2021. Within the first year, we now have over 350,000 total registrations. The majority of these are actually our stores users, people who don't have email addresses, people who don't have any corporate issued devices at all. They're registering for fingerprint ID on a personal device to access external applications like their HR application or to see their benefits. And so we've gotten a great use of this beyond our targeted audience. And then finally, probably the metric that we're most proud of is the fact that we've seen well over 99% of our users be able to register for and use the solution without requiring any support at all. No help desk tickets, no engineering escalations to my team. This was a big concern when we started. We had no idea what we were going to run into. How are people going to react to this? What problems are they going to have? We were actually concerned we were going to overrun the engineering team. If you can't have your engineers building the next solution because they're doing support, we would slow down very rapidly. And that didn't happen at all. In fact, the #1 case that we still see today is around multi-device credentials, people who get a newer replacement device and they don't understand that they need to re-register. So we're really hopeful that passkey will be the answer for us, and we're excited to see that come forward. So as with any enterprise initiative, this is an enterprise change management initiative. As with any initiative, we learned a lot. We had some wins, and we've seen some opportunities and challenges as well. As we think about wins, I'll focus on the program execution. We really focused on a program around iterating and learning. So we ran 7 different pilots before we launched. And every pilot had a learning objective. And at the end of the pilot, we went back and evaluated, how did we do against our learning objective? And then based on what we learned, we made the necessary tweaks. Do we want to change a communication, change a message, change a flow? And we did that multiple times to make sure we continue to try and get the optimal experience for our users. We also recognize the need to get a little bit more pushy or a little bit more active in our promotion over time. We started out by targeting users via emails and surveys. And what you quickly realize is A, it's not sustainable, and B, it's not scalable. And then the other challenge is that you have to catch the person in the moment, right? I have to be ready to go log into something unless I can be totally inspiring to them. And so over time, we began changing to more of an active model. So we pulled people into the registration flow and then let them opt out versus trying to push them or pull them into the flow based on a communication that we sent. And that played a big difference. That's actually a large reason why we saw so many of our stores team members use, because we didn't target them at all. They have nothing to target. I can't send them a communication. They don't have a device that I know about. Those people were pulled in because of the way we changed our registration flow. And then the other thing we highlighted or identified is the opportunity around partnerships. We built a lot of key partnerships across the organization. we had identified a couple of our larger applications that weren't yet using our enterprise authentication framework. And so we worked with them to get them onboarded because we wanted to pull their users. We wanted to create value for their users. And if you can get a large number of users in one go, that hopefully will help. And so that's one of the things that we saw. We also partnered with a number of our application teams who were using our patterns because we helped to promote it within their voices. We put our messages, our branding on their portal pages, within their FAQs to help them tell our story in their voice. So they were encouraging their users to sign up for Fingerprint ID to access their application. And then we also saw the opportunity to partner by inserting ourselves into various business processes. So we partnered with our HR team to get plugged into the HR onboarding process. So as new team members now come into our corporate environment, as they get their laptop, they're encouraged to sign up for Fingerprint ID right there on the day they start. They don't use a password hardly at all. There are some applications that are not yet capable, but for the most part, those users will hardly ever use a password going forward. We also partnered with our desktop engineering team to ensure that every new laptop being sent out had instructions to register for Fingerprint ID as well. So we did so to make sure, again, that those users are getting the benefit of Fingerprint ID as soon as they get that new device in their hands. We also obviously had to have that robust communication plan. I'm not going to read through the specifics of the plan because it is Target's plan, but there are really 4 elements that are critical. One is you have to identify your audience. Who do you need to communicate to? All right, what type of user are there? What's their level of technical skills or not, as the case may be? You have to think about your messaging. What's the message you want to deliver to them? What's going to help to influence them or inspire them to take the action you're asking them to take? Then you have to think about the channel. Where do you want to communicate to them and the timing that goes with that? Those are important as well. But overall, I would say messaging was really the heart of our plan. And this is where the marketing and branding gets fun. So we did hire, or at least partner with our security awareness training team for some branding experience and some branding expertise. And we focused on 2 things. We focused first on imagery. And we focused on imagery because it was a really good way to get consistent messages delivered in a graphical format. So something would be eye-catchy. So we built web and email banners like you see here. We put these in our communications. We put these on our portal pages. And again, we asked our partner teams to put these on their portal pages. We also built an animated graphic for our login page, so like the one that you see here again, to continue to deliver that consistent messaging, the value that the user is going to get out of it, why we want them or why they should take the next step and go through that registration process. And we also had some stickers created. I have a stack of them here if you're interested, but stickers are a fun way at Target. People put them all over their laptops, and so it's just one way that we tried to have a little bit of fun. We make these available at our walk-up help desks. These get handed out to every new team member that joins. These get put in the box when a new laptop gets shipped out. Just ways to reinforce the brand and reinforce the message for our users, and then to take them to our portal so they can learn more about the program. And then you also have to focus on the words within the imagery. So this is where it's really important because words are critical to get people's heads and their hearts. You have to get them inspired to take that next step. And so as we thought about the words that we used, we really looked at it from 2 standpoints. Number 1, we talked about the value statements. Why should you do this? And in this section, what we really try to do is highlight sort of the classical struggles with passwords against the benefits of Fingerprint ID. So you'll see words highlighted like wasting time, mistyping, and frustration, countered against easiest, fastest, most secure. Now notice that it says easiest and fastest first because that's what the customer cares about. Security is what we care about. They cared about the easiest and fastest. We also focus on, in our calls to action, the value of simplicity, right? So if you think about the registration flow, it's a simple one-time setup. It's as easy as 1, 2. Not 1, 2, 3, it's as easy as 1, 2. So we tried to highlight the simplicity value. And then we carried that forward as well into the usage experience, right? As you're logging in with Fingerprint ID. So it's a simple touch or a simple tap. It's a quick glance if you think about a mobile device. All these words were words that we tested along the way that we've really found value in. Now, again, notice that it didn't say passwordless because we're not getting rid of passwords. And I didn't say FIDO because nobody outside the identity realm knows what FIDO is. So those words were basically taken off the table very early because they were relevant to our user base. And we said focus on words like these. As I think about some of the things that are slowing us down, I'll talk very generically about the ecosystem, right? The broad ecosystem. There are just slightly different nuanced experience differences between different browsers and browser OS combinations. Just the implementation by platform is a little bit different. So it's hard for users sometimes to follow if they're switching devices or they've got a Mac at home and or Mac at work and a PC at home, for example. Some of the things are just not quite the same. We had a situation last summer with a major operating system upgrade by one of the vendors that actually broke FIDO for a period of time. And so as a result, we had to fight to get those users to come back to us. And so it was something that we struggled with a little bit. After the patch was applied, we had to get them to re-register to take advantage of it again. User preference, I'll touch very quickly. As is the case for most of you, we're still largely a remote workforce. So you think about an engineer, dual monitor setup, external mouse, external keyboard, that laptop sitting off to the side of their desk, oftentimes with the lid closed. Think about the way that you work. That fingerprint sensor is not convenient and probably not even accessible. Now, there's no way I'm going to tell that user to change the way they work. So this is a battle that we're continuing to fight, but basically we're looking at some biometric-enabled security keys, for example, to see if those will help us out. And then privacy is still a concern. We still have users that are concerned that Target has access to their biometrics, and they don't want that. And so we continue to try and point to messaging from the vendors and continue to develop messaging for ourselves that help tell the story to those users that really this is privacy-centric and something they shouldn't be concerned about. As we're heading towards the end here, I'll just highlight a couple of additional metrics that we rolled out that really helped us manage our program and track our progress. The first one is just an ongoing count of registrations over a period of time. And while I'd love to see this be a continual increase upward over time, what I don't want to see is a big drop-off. That means our registrations have fallen off. But what I'll also highlight is the numbers themselves aren't as critical. They're important because they'll play into the next metric we're going to talk about in a second. But the number itself isn't as critical. What we're really looking at here are these inflection points. See, every one of these inflection points was a decision we made. Send out a communication, change a message, change a flow. And what we're doing here is monitoring how well that did with our audience. Did it get the result that we expected, and did it get the result we wanted? If it did, do it again. It's a great lever to pull. Let's try it again. If it didn't, what did we learn from it, and how do we tweak it and make it better for the next time? And then the other metric that's really important, and this is ultimately our measure of success. In the end, this is what I'm ultimately going to be measured upon. This is what I call usage over time. And this is a relative percentage of users who are using fingerprint ID in their daily experiences versus passwords, versus falling back to passwords. And the goal here is absolutely to see this number continue to rise over time, ultimately reaching that critical point where we've crossed the threshold and we have more users using fingerprint ID than passwords. Now, we're not quite there yet, but we're definitely on the trajectory that we want. And as more users register week after week, right, that's what's helping that number continue to increase. As we get more applications onboarded, that's what happened. That's what's helping that metric to increase. So as I said when I started, my goal was to give you something to take back to the office next week, right? We're all going to go back, and you have to do something with everything you learned this week. What can you do with it? So let's see how I did overall. We introduced a couple, or at least I introduced a couple of things that influenced our decision to begin our journey. How will my experiences help you? Oops. Come on. We talked about some of the things that helped and hindered our rollout. How will you leverage those to make your rollout as good as mine? And then finally, I introduced a couple of metrics that we found valuable to track our progress. How will you measure your progress and track your success? With that, my time is up. I went a little fast there at the end. Feel free to reach out, connect on LinkedIn, drop me an email, catch me in the hallway throughout the conference. I'll take any questions that I have in the last couple of minutes.
If you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll bring the mic to you so we can get recorded. Have several winners already. What you described was just internal employee facing. Have you done anything with customer facing?
No, not yet.
Are you planning to?
It's on the roadmap.
You mentioned that the way you had the rollout plan is that you pull people into the registration process and then allow them to opt out versus kind of forcing them to log in.
Yep.
Can you just describe that a little bit more?
Yeah, so we began, so we started out early on, again, email communication to start, and then we started out with a username password field, and then like a little image, click here to go give it a try. And so we basically bypassed the click and then took them straight into the flow during a login flow. So I'm logging into application A. We would sort of take them past the password screen and then let them fall back or go back to the password. And we found that was really, really effective after we got some voice of customer and learned a little bit about it.
So you also mentioned that you're considering provisioning some of your users with security keys. Can you share any thoughts in terms of how to provision the security keys to your users?
Like procedurally, or?
How will you assign those security keys to your users?
Yeah, so we've actually done a couple things. So I have a long history in some of the old-fashioned tokens that you all know what they are by name, where you have to assign a specific token to a specific person, put it in a specific envelope and send it to them, or have them come pick it up. I don't want to do that again. We're actually in conversations with our help desk about just having a fishbowl of them, allowing people to just come up and take one out of the fishbowl and pick it up, and then self-registering it on their device, on their profile.
So let's see, I'm planning a much more aggressive rollout. Getting my users off of the existing OTP mechanism, MFA they're on. Planning on a very short window for that. I'm kind of curious what drove you to make it very optional for your users and reach out to device.
Basically, it was so new, I didn't want to force something that we didn't understand yet. Again, I was concerned about help desk, and what's my help desk implication going to be, my support implication if it came back to my team. We were just unsure on the technology and the flows, so it was just more of a learning opportunity and sort of ease our way into it.
Regarding the help desk, you were talking about that 99% success rate.
Mm-hmm.
What were the major factors that got you to that 99% no ticket open?
I think just it works. We iterated a lot. We learned a lot along the way. We just kept trying to make it better and better and better. In the end, it just really does work. I mean, the hardest struggle, hard's the wrong word. The one thing we see is that some people's fingerprint sensors aren't as sensitive as others. So when I say it's a simple touch, it may be a simple couple of touches for a user, or if you have a dirty finger or wet or otherwise, right, it may not work exactly right. But yeah. But overall, it's really been a non-event, total non-event for us.
You have a kind of a unique opportunity to evaluate behavior across a workforce that has a choice between FIDO and, say, password. Have you done anything to evaluate behavioral analytics on use, fallback, what causes fallback, things like that?
We do have a graph that we track that we haven't been able to dive into enough yet to understand. So we do watch the percent usage over time. The sister of that metric that I shared is where we see sort of a ebb and flow of how people use it sort of week to week or day to day as the metric shows. But I don't have any insights from it yet. Yep.
I see that you have SSO in one of your diagrams.
Mm-hmm.
How many integrations do you guys work on to integrate with?
Like applications, you mean? Hundreds of applications and thousands of APIs.
Earlier you mentioned 50% of targeted devices or laptops. This was over what time period, and what were some of the reasons for the non-adoption of other machines?
Yeah, so the metric specifically was 50% of our users over the first 8 months of the program. Again, it's privacy concerns, it's user preference, and it's just not getting the person in the moment that we needed to get them. And so we continue to do surveys. We've slowed down our surveys because, frankly, people are getting tired of us asking. I've had a handful of users. We do provide a checkbox that says, I don't want to ever do this. Please don't ask me again. And so we have had some users select that. Again, privacy concerns, user preference, or otherwise. But we've sort of slowed down our push now, and we're really just working on making it better. More applications get integrated right now is really our number one focus.
You shared a very nice registration curve,
Mm-hmm.
and also the event it caused.
Yep.
Are you at liberty to talk about the ones that make you like buy?
Not specifically. Yeah, some of them are the events, and some of them are just the conditions. Peak season, for example, right? We're all focused on supporting our guests. and things just slowed down. We didn't do as much promotion over peak because we didn't want to disrupt people doing their day-to-day jobs to support our guests.
And I have a question too. How are you dealing with shared devices?
We don't have that many of them.
What about in stores?
This is primarily for HQ users, and then stores users who are accessing their personal information, HR, benefits, or otherwise.
Cool. Anybody else before we wrap up? All right, Tom, thank you very much. It was a great session.
Thank you.